Peace, 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 and welcome to the collision where sports and politics collide. Dave and Chuck are both out today, so I'm going solo, which is all good because we have someone who is no stranger to the collision. Had her on many times. We're going to keep having her on because she's so wonderful. Captain Sonia Pruitt, how you doing?
Hey, applause. Thank you.
Hey, listen, I really, appreciate you jumping on. This isn't when we usually record our show, so they couldn't, get their schedules and everything like that. But I appreciate you because I really want to talk about this incident that happened over the weekend. So let me read a little bit. This is an article from CNN, kind of just explaining everything for all of our listeners that haven't seen. So, Texas Department of Public Safety (DPS) trooper was sent home after having a run-in with South Carolina player Nyck during Saturday's game against number 3 Texas A&M. In the second quarter, the junior wide receiver scored an 80-yard touchdown, and his momentum took him up a tunnel at Kyle Field while hobbling with a slight limp. As Harbor and his teammates came back down the tunnel, walking 4 wide, so they were all next to each other, a Texas DPS trooper was walking up the tunnel and purposely bumped into Harbor and the Gamecocks running back Oscar Attaway III, with the trooper appearing to give the players a shove. The trooper then turned and pointed at Harbor and appeared to yell at him. Texas A&M campus police later announced, "We are aware of the incident in the Northeast Tunnel involving a DPS trooper. He has been relieved of his game day assignment." The 20-year-old was then ushered away by Ataman, and they headed back to the field. The DPS also issued a statement saying, "The trooper was sent home. Our Office of Inspector General, OIG, is also aware of the incident and will be further looking into the matter. No additional information will be released at this time." And the article said that CNN has reached out to Texas A&M athletics for comment, but did not hear back from them. So that's the story. Your thoughts? I'll give you the mic. Just go for it.
You know what? I would love to know what the young man had to say. I want to know what Trooper said to him when he turned around and pointed his finger. That pointing finger is something else, isn't it? We've been getting fingers pointed at us for so long. We know what's usually behind the pointy finger.
Right.
So I would love to know what he said to him. But, so it was clearly intentional. If you look at it multiple times like I did, you see him, throw his elbow out. Mm-hmm. It was like he was looking for a fight.
Yep.
One of the most interesting things is I ran, how people run straight to the comments? I ran straight to the comments in the law enforcement officers Facebook group I'm in. I never see anything. I just go in there and see what they say, right?
Okay.
And 99% of them said, "Oh, that is messed up. He needs to get, a discipline for that." And, some people were like, "That's why the public doesn't trust us." I saw those comments. Wait a minute. But what I did not see was the racial piece. Because, we like to avoid race. They don't want us to take the race card. The race card is always there. So, what was that all about? Now, I also know that some people talked about maybe it was because, it was the competition, and maybe he's a real a solid fan, and he was just upset about it. Okay, well, you know what? That's not what you get paid for.
Right.
You don't get paid to come to the game and act out. Maybe you need to go home and change your clothes and come back as a fan, and you still don't get to act out.
Right.
So I'm not falling for that. And it's great that, they terminated his assignment. I hope that's permanent. It's okay. They sent him home for the day to cool off, and the inspector general is doing an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to manage their expectations with this, because he's probably not going to get fired unless he, maybe there's some other stuff we don't know. And even then we probably won't ever know it. right? Because that's usually how it runs. And he likely has a collective bargaining agreement through the union that protects him in some ways. And one of those things is from immediately getting fired anyway. I tried to find a collective bargaining agreement for Texas state troopers, but I couldn't find one.
Okay, so a lot to unpack here with this.
Okay.
My first thought in seeing this, and I even posted it, this was my first thought, was that if he will do this in front of a crowded filled stadium where he knows the cameras are on him, he knows that this player just got a touchdown, he knows everybody is watching, and he has no issues behaving the way that he behaved for the entire world to see. So if he's willing to do that with no hesitation, what is he doing when he stops Black people on the side of the road as a highway patrolman? How does he act in his everyday interactions with Black people in particular? If you're willing to scold an athlete who literally just scored a touchdown in front of everybody, how are you acting in your everyday practice as a policeman? And that is the bigger issue to me. When you say, yes, you want everybody to kind of limit their expectations that he's probably not going to get fired. Being sent home for the day is nothing. That was nothing. That's not. Yeah, that's a little a light tap on the wrist. Not even a smack. That's a light tap. You know what I mean? What he should have been, in my opinion, was fired on the spot. There should have been an address by the head of the Texas police or the Texas state troopers that said, this is not what we're about. This is not what we stand for. This is not our, what we teach. This is not what is acceptable for us. That's what it should have been immediately. But we didn't see that. And maybe they're doing an investigation or whatever, but I think that should have happened immediately.
So not only could I not find a copy of their collective bargaining agreement, I also did not see any statement from the union.
Right.
Well, because usually they jump out there. They are, the usual statements about the protecting the police and the police. I was willing. I try at the end of 2025, going into 2026. I really like to consider the humanity of people. Okay. Because I expect law enforcement to consider our humanity at all times. That's part of their job, right? So I'm gonna try to consider his humanity, which is why I said, maybe he was a fan. It wasn't enough. It was not enough. And then I said, well, maybe he was having a bad day. It's not enough. You don't get to abuse the public because you're having a bad day.
Right, at all.
In policing, that is generally not a consideration. I was at a conference this weekend, I was mentioning to you, and we talked about the expectations of the community with law enforcement. It was really we were talking about ICE. Okay. And the federal policing and, the militarization of the police and sending the military in and stuff. And, there's still an expectation. Everybody, but in particular, our marginalized communities like Black people want to be treated with dignity and respect. It is an expectation. And police departments in the police academy, when you first start getting socialized into policing, that is not the conversation. You're not talking about, we want you to treat, and this is a generalization. There might be some really progressive police departments who really do focus on that.
But that we have never seen before. But yeah, they could be out there. All right, I got you. Keep going.
Time you finish the police academy and you go through your field training, you lose all of that, even if it was there, unless you're really conscious. You got to be real woke. That's that word, woke. You got to be very conscious. Is focus. And so when it's not a focus, then you see acting out like this. To me, it's part of the whole culture. I can do this. I can use my power to elbow somebody because, really, I was thinking they probably should have responded differently, but I'm glad they responded the way that they did. But
that's the thing, though, Captain Pruitt. We have the onus is on us. When I'm saying us, I'm
Yes.
talking about Black people, brown people, the people who they are stopping, the people who are being abused and treated terribly, to act perfectly in order for the situation not to escalate. So no
Yes.
onus is put on the police officer to act with any kind of decorum or professionalism or discretion or nothing. They
And
act.
you're making my point.
Uh,
And we also, I love to tell the story. I think I've told this many times with you about the bad apple. I'm so sick of hearing about bad apples.
Oh,
And
I hate that
somebody
phrase.
tell me what is the actions of a bad apple? What is the behavioral characteristics of a bad apple since you want to get rid of him? Is he a bad apple? Right? I mean, and why aren't y'all saying anything? Any other time you be jumping out here talking about it, you don't know the whole story and you're taking it out of context and all of these things, but now everybody's ultra quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we saw what our own eyes do, give him an elbow. Well, we see with our own eyes all the other, stuff too. But we saw what happened. So why aren't you saying anything?
Yeah. I even turned on Fox News to see what they were going to say, and usually they come right out for the policemen. And they weren't doing that this time. That was what I saw. They were like, "Yeah, let's wait until more facts come out." That's what they said, but they didn't jump right out and condemn the person or condemn the player, condemn the person who was the victim of it. They usually do that. They didn't do that this time. Not what I saw. Now there's something else that they did it on, but I didn't see that, and I just heard, like you said, silence. This is one I looked up, and the director, Freeman F. Martin, who is the head of the Texas State Troopers and the entire Texas Department of Public Safety. So that is the person who I wanted to look up and see if he was going to say something. And there's nothing. There's absolutely not even a mention. Now, like I said, maybe they're formulating their facts, they're gathering information. I don't really know, and that's the part that's so insulting to the public.
Yes.
And you take 2 weeks to gather information. When we saw the video and saw exactly what happened, the entire world did. And then you're going to come back and tell us that what we saw with our own eyes wasn't exactly what happened. Because of X, Y. It happens every time, Captain Pruitt. They follow the script.
I am prayerful. First of all, I'm mad because they haven't said anything. That's the first thing. And for me, that means you really sitting back trying to figure something out, right? By trying to strategize.
Yep.
The best, if I were in charge, I would have immediately made a statement. Because this was broadcast, internationally? It wasn't just national.
Right.
So people saw this. So you got some explaining to do. Yeah. And how come you are not making a statement besides that the Office of Inspector General is investigating? Okay, that's great. And they should. But meanwhile, say something. Say something about what we just saw.
So let me ask you this. You're this person, right? You're this person, Director Freeman F. Martin, head of Texas State Troopers. You're this person. What does your statement look like to the public right now? This just happened. What is your statement?
The statement is an acknowledgement of what everybody saw. Now, see let me explain that. What generally happens is the law enforcement agents don't want to say something that looks like they are agreeing that this person might be guilty of something, right? But you can address what you saw. Now, we have some people in law enforcement, chiefs and sheriffs, that have come out when stuff happened and they said, what I saw disturbed me. Should have. Why aren't you saying it? That did it not disturb you? Because it disturbed all the rest of us. It disturbed 99% of the police officers in this country, and you're not going to say that. You just gonna be quiet. What are you worried about? A lawsuit? That could happen anyway. You might as well be. See, that's why we have this issue of not being our humanity not being acknowledged, because when you don't say anything, you are not, as a matter of fact, you're ignoring our humanity.
Right.
You don't have to make no long statement. Just acknowledge what we all saw. And
Right.
so, you know what else that does? When you acknowledge what we all saw, then you are now trying to establish trust with the community, whose trust is being destroyed by actions like that, troopers.
I agree. I agree. And I gave you my opinion as far as, being dismissed for the day isn't enough for me. What is your opinion on that?
I have a two-sided opinion.
Go for it.
I like you, of course, feel well, let me take a little deeper. If you will behave in this way in this moment, what other things are you capable of, and what other things have you done? Right? We can't prove it. Is this a one-off? Because we all do have a bad day, because now I'm tapping into people's humanity. Right? On the other side of that is the legal part.
Okay.
Where we might want him fired, but he's got protections under maybe the state constitution or some state law or the collective bargaining agreement. And if we are going to stand behind our Constitution in the United States, because right now they are shredding it to bits on the streets, right? Law enforcement is.
Right.
And we get to stand for people having due process, even the police.
Okay. That's fair. I think that's fair. But we have to see the not a different set of rules for the police than for everybody else. So if the due process has to be fair and balanced, to use Fox News' slogan, and if you're going to have to hold everybody else to a certain standard and a certain level of decorum, and when engaging with the police, it has to go both ways.
I don't disagree. I love that you said that. And so state law, national law, the Constitution covers many of those things as far as how law enforcement should be treating the public, right? So state law, state constitutions should also be in alignment with protecting the public. That's why much of the law enforcement in Maryland, where I served, were upset when they got rid of the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights in the legislature. One of the greatest moves ever. You know why? Because the police are already covered by the Constitution of the United States. We don't need any extra stuff. What is this extra all these extra protections? And the Maryland legislature, this was after the murder of George Floyd, they were like, oh, no, this is too much. We're going to take this away. Officers were pretty pissed off. But I promise you, nothing has changed. If an officer gets civilly sued in the state of Maryland, it's still going to be their jurisdiction where they work. That's going to probably cover any civil fines that, come as a result of misconduct. So nothing really changed. But the thought that you think that you need extra protection, more protection than the public, that is problematic.
I agree. And it's something else that bothers me here with this is, I'm looking at the news and I just want to, just kind of check in to see if people are talking about this or reporting about this or anything like that. And the deafening silence, and it looks like it is the policeman's fault. However, if it was reversed and say the players were visibly in the wrong, they were visibly, they did something, they were belligerent, they were pointing, they looked like they were fussing, they were everything, then we would have seen people like Stephen A. Smith, like Jason Whitlock, people like, that go, Marcellus Wiley, those people go on and say, this is the problem with our community, and this is the problem with our culture, and this is, we don't know how to do, and that's what, but then when you have a situation like this, you know what I mean, and it's not met with the same enthusiasm. You know what I mean? Even if they do report on it, even that, okay, this looks very, like something is wrong here, but not with the same energy that they would give us. And that bothers me with people of the media that look like us. I expect it from Fox News. I expect it from Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and all of that. I expect them to do that. But when we do that, it bothers me. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, wait a minute, why are you taking that position and talking to? Why are you taking an isolated incident and then relating it to the whole Black community? But you don't do that the opposite way and take an isolated incident with one state trooper and relate it to the whole police department. You know what I mean? You don't do it the same way. So that I don't know. That bothers me, Captain Pruitt.
You're trying to have like a whole conversation on internalized racism. Okay, I'm glad you're calling your boys out, Mr. Whit.
You have to.
Because somebody should. I mean, like, why haven't they said anything?
Yeah.
That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
And yet here we are once again, and I really, like you, am concerned. What if this had been on the street, and what has been happening with this particular trooper on the street, and nobody tell me, well, it didn't have anything to do with race. We don't know that, and I promise you, I think that it likely did. I mean, it usually does.
It usually does.
And we keep trying to erase race as though we're the ones who are always bringing up race. But first of all, we didn't create this whole structural inequity, right? They create it, and when you act on it, then when we respond to it, oh, you're playing the race card. No, it's just always there. And we're gonna stop. And I feel like, in the spirit of Ida B. Wells, we need to stop acting like the truth ain't the truth.
That's
it is what it is. Why did you elbow this young Black man and try to push your way through the young Black man, and then turn around and point your finger and say whatever nasty thing that you said?
It took me back, and I called one of my my OGs. He was older than me, Roland Williams, and we're going to talk about this later on, either Wednesday or Thursday. But it took me back to when we were in college, and this was like my first day at Syracuse, and we were having there was a big protest going on because they were protesting the campus security being able to use pepper spray. This tells me how old it was, you know what I mean? Because now all the campus security have guns, but we was protesting pepper spray, and well, they were. I just got there. I just happened to come about it and see what was going on, right? And so the fear was that when anything happened with any Black or brown students or anything like that, they just gonna pepper spray everybody. Not even try to do. That's just everybody gonna be coughing and carrying on in the whole place, because that's the way they're gonna misuse that power. And me and this other football player was there, and we joined the protest, and we stood there, and they took this big picture of us and put it in the front of the papers, right? And so we're standing there, and they're like, okay, you don't understand, talking to some of the students, you don't understand how much of an issue it is with the police and us. Like, you're gonna learn. She's like, now y'all are like in a little protected bubble because y'all are athletes. But to every single everyday Black student on this campus, they look at us and treat us like we are the enemy, like we are criminals, and we're here going to school just like the other white kids are going to school. So now to see this, and this is the reason why I'm saying this, now to see this state trooper treat an athlete who just scored a touchdown, and all the cameras are on him, and say, I have the confidence, so much confidence that I'm going to be protected, that I don't have any hesitation on behaving like this in front of the entire athletic world that is watching this football game right now. What message does that send of how the community, any community, but not just the Black, any community should feel, as far as how much comfortability should they have with state troopers, so the policemen, or how they're going to protect, because these are college kids, right?
That's right.
So you send your children to college not expecting them to be treated like this.
What a great point. What an outstanding point that he was interacting with a college student.
Mm-hmm.
Besides being an athlete, he's somebody's child. Some people love him. They expect you to treat him, with dignity and respect, and you didn't. And why? I swear, somebody please tell me what he said when he pointed his finger.
I mean, what he probably said, but we don't know the specific. If I can guess.
Boy, I feel like he might have said, boy, okay, that's,
I'm almost 100% sure a boy came out his word.
A boy come out?
Right. I was
thinking that.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well. And he was pointing. He was like pointing. I was like, wow, that's
why is he so angry?
Why are you so angry? And that's another thing that, sometimes our children who are there as athletes, people don't understand how some people like this state trooper is jealous of them. Doesn't like the attention that they're getting. Doesn't like the fact that they have all this fandom. Don't like the fact that they're now getting NIL. Hate that with passion, right? So I remember having teachers when I was in high school. Our name was in the paper a little bit, but and different teachers literally hating us. Like looking at us like, oh, you guys walk around the school like you own the place. And we're like, what do you mean? We're just walking around minding our business.
We're children, by the way.
But that also goes to black boys and black girls aren't allowed to be children as long as white girls.
My gosh. Here you go with another topic of conversation.
We can have a whole thing about, but you know what? The thing about this is, and we're gonna have a lot more conversations. These are conversations that we need to continuously have because they're in the reporting of this. I see people skimming over some of this stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like, hold up now. That you go a little bit more in depth at that point. You know what I mean? There's a reason why.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad because I found this article. I'm pulling it up now because I didn't memorize it, of course, but. The Texas A&M quarterback. Is it Johnny Manziel? I don't follow college. I might have just tore up his name. I apologize if I did.
A while ago, but go ahead. What is
he was on the show with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco.
Okay.
And he says he makes excuses for the trooper. He acknowledges the wrongdoing and then kind of pivots to saying stuff like maybe he was a little frustrated in the first half around these parts, partner. We protect this house, we paid a lot of money for this house, get out of my tunnel. And then he says boy. I was like, ooh, so he thought he might have said boy too. Get back on the field, stuff like that. I was like, yo, dude, really?
No, you can't. That's not excusable. That's not even, that is. I gotta look this up because Johnny Manziel, I'll have to give him the business. That's what he was saying.
First illustrated article. I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh yeah, send it to me.
I was on to say, so I guess they must have kind of said, yo, wait a minute, this was unnecessary, this was wrong. He says he sorted out for sure. And to be honest, I've had my tips with the state troopers. Boy, shut up. I'm gonna call. Boy, you shut up now. Okay. We don't try to compare what's happened with you. What happened to these young black men in this tunnel? Stop it. So there's always the excusing and maybe.
I remember watching Bill O'Reilly say, well, when I get stopped by the police, I just follow the commands and I don't have any problems. They ask me for my license, and I give them my license. They ask me for my registration, I give them my registration. How are you doing, officer? And I have no problems. And if black people would just do that, then they wouldn't have any problems either. And I always use that clip of him saying that. And white people understand you getting stopped by the police is not the same situation when we get stopped by the police. There's something completely different that happens. So we have to, and I tell this to my son when he started driving, told this to my daughter when she started driving, give her the whole, this is the talk that you've heard about. We have to instruct our children, and we have to do this as well when we get stopped by the police. We have to immediately roll down the window, turn the music off. If it's at night, turn the interior lights on. It's better for us to put our license and registration on the dashboard so we don't have to reach anything. Like Philando Castile, when you reach the, they get trigger happy and they get on. We have to put our hands.
Tell them that you're reaching.
Oh, and after they tell us to go get it, so we have to put our hands at 10 and 2, and then after they tell us to get their driver's license registration, we can't just jump and go get it. We have to say, okay, I'm going to remove my hands from the steering wheel and slowly go and get my driver's license that you just told me to get. Is that okay? And then we have to slowly go and get it while they have the flashlights on our hands as we go. So, white people, that's not what you have to do. You don't know that world because it's not your world. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about that. That's what we have to worry about when we're stopped.
And me too. I mean, people might see that we're a captain and be like, oh, When I get stopped, I feel the same way the general public feels, because at the end of the day, they see my skin color before they even care about the fact that I'm law enforcement. I mean, so we all playing by these same rules, and the hypocrisy and the double standard. As a matter of fact, one of the other conversations we had this weekend was about what's going on in Charlotte right now with ICE. Just a slight segue, and how one of the men whose windows they broke the window of his truck and pulled him out, but he was a citizen. He just happened to be Latino, right? And I went looking to see what people were saying about it in Charlotte. And they were like, well, he should comply. And I'm thinking, why does he have to comply? First of all, with an unlawful order, probably, because where was your paper? Why are you breaking my window? But why does he have to comply? And the fake, I don't know who they are. These people who are saying that they're ICE agent or border protection. I apologize. Border protection. They're not following any rules. They're not following the law. They're not giving him the benefit of the Fourth Amendment. How is it that everybody but us gets the benefit of the law? We don't and rights. What is that about?
I agree. So let me ask you one last thing, and we're gonna continue this conversation. You might have to be one of my go-to people when Dave and Chuck can't come. So we just got in because we have conversations where, you know what I mean, we got to get deep into it. But I hope that you are not the only former police officer, the first ever Black female captain of Montgomery County. You are not the only one who condemns what everybody saw in this.
Absolutely not. You know what?
You were not the only one.
We are one of the. I keep talking about this weekend. It was so exciting to get together with other social advocates and talk about how we serve the community and what's best for the community. And we talked about elevating those particular voices because people don't know about me. I happen to have some press because of what happened with Colin Kaepernick, and that's how you and I met after the murder of Trayvon Martin. Right. So I get some airtime and people get to know my voice and what I stand for. But there are lots and lots of Black officers who are out here fighting the fight. Some of them are retired. Some of them are still in police departments, and they really, really do need support. My support came from the community. My support didn't come from inside. It was the people who knew me who were like, we got your back. We need you to stand for us. And so, there are many. Hopefully we can bring some of those stories to light so that the people in your audience can see who the people are who've been out here doing the thing.
Well, let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's keep doing set up events and having just, because I know you know what I mean? But honestly, I don't know a whole lot of other people to call. Not a lot of different, former Black officers who will have the courage to speak the way that you speak. I mean, I always tell the story, but when I first, when we first met and we was on that panel with Trayvon Martin, I first came up to you and said, I've never heard a police officer speak the way that you spoke. Like I've never heard that before. So yes, if there are more Captain Pruitts, I would love to connect with them, and let's keep pushing.
Make it happen, then. We're gonna make it happen.
That's what's up. Well, listen, I appreciate you for taking the time, impromptu. I called you last minute. I appreciate your willingness to get on and come on the collision. And we're going to keep pushing. All right. Okay. You know the respect I have for you. So we're going to keep pushing.
All right. Everybody stay safe.
All right. Peace.